All right, and we are live. Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. Hopefully, the connection is not bad because we know that I'm known for having a terrible internet connection. But anyway, I have a special guest with me. You guys know him very well. He's been on the channel several times, but he's been on my live streams. But we've never actually done a formal live where I actually get to do an interview and kind of pick his brain and everything like that. So we are choosing today, a random Saturday,
Yeah,
last minute to do it. So. Welcome everybody, Fabio with Capital Mindset. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How about yourself, Echoes?
Doing good, doing good.
It's
So,
a long time no see. We haven't seen each other since yesterday.
now you're right about that. Let's see, bro. Both of y'all are streaming and strongman. Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well,
That
I think Strongman only streams basically. That's like all the
yeah, he
videos.
doesn't even post videos anymore. He
Yeah.
does just only stream. Yeah, no, you're right. You're definitely right. I think Strongman figured out. I don't see Strongman. Oh, he is live. He is live. Yeah, I don't think Strongman. What was I gonna say? I think Strongman realized that for whatever reason, live streams make more money. I don't know what it is. Like they get more views. I mean, like it seems that way. I don't know what it is, but I looked at my live streams. I'm like, my live streams get way more views than my videos. Why is that? It's
Yeah,
weird.
the YouTube's really trying to push into that because Twitch has dominated live streams for a while, but YouTube I think can quite easily attempt to dominate. I think they're more rewarding for their creators. Last time I checked. On top of that, a lot of them are actually coming over, I think, to YouTube. So yeah,
Okay. Yeah, that's smart. I mean, I like YouTube. I think YouTube's going to be here to stay. So I don't blame them. Because I saw they're also doing the shorts thing. I didn't get an email yet, but I saw the announcement. Apparently, they're going to start sharing the ad revenue of creators who do shorts because they're trying to compete with
yeah,
TikTok, which is smart.
yeah.
Yeah,
Incentive
which is
for
smart.
people to make shorts.
Yeah,
More
which
incentive.
Which, while we're on that subject, that brings me to one of my questions. So, I like Google as an investment, and I know you like Google as well because I know you have it in your portfolio. But the question is, how do you feel about buying Google now? Do you
I
think
actually,
Google? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, I'd actually be considered buying it now, or
Okay.
adding to my position. But yeah, no, Google's been a long holding for a while. So it's like psychologically, it's bad, but it always lingers. It's psychologically difficult to add to something when you were buying it a lot lower. But you got
Yeah,
to get
yeah, I can
over that.
understand that. I can definitely understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, you do got to get over that because that's not going to be productive. So. But yeah, I'd be considering when I'm deploying new capital that yeah, Google's getting to a place where I'm not opposed to it. It was early 2021, and I was open about that when I was asked on my lives because people would ask like, "Oh, you have Google there? It's a decent size of the portfolio. When would you add again?" And I was like, "Not here." But
Yeah.
no, I'm not going to sell Google. I haven't sold a single share of any Google share that I've ever bought. So far,
Right.
that changed.
And right. And I was gonna say that's interesting because I know that there's some stocks in your portfolio that you've sold or you considered selling. So what is it about Google where you don't want to sell? Is Google just that great of a company to you where you're just like, I kind of just want to hold this for the next 10 years?
Yeah, I don't want to play with the soap because I could be wrong. I could be trying to optimize where I shouldn't probably be optimizing. Like the story hasn't changed, in my opinion, thus far for Google. Like I think we just got news that the EU is doing another lawsuit on Google, but yet
Yep.
again, this is like part of the course. It's like I guess, a fine for doing business. But yeah, no, it's something that I don't plan on selling because nothing has really changed as far as my thesis goes. Google Cloud still kicking strong, Google Search still kicking strong, cash cow, YouTube still
Yep.
growing.
Yep.
There's not really a reason for me to be hesitant for Google. But
Nice. So I know you're aware, you know that a lot of YouTubers started their channels and came out of nowhere during the bubble that we had in 2020 and 2021, where the stock market literally just went like this, as
mhm.
well as the penny stocks, the Kathy Wood stocks, and all that stuff. I didn't know you during that time, but I'm sure you were investing. What were you doing during that time during the bubble? Like, did you know that we were in a bubble? Did you kind of look at some stocks and say, okay, that's kind of not right? Did you get caught up in the bubble and end up buying some bad stocks? I mean, how were you behaving during the bubble of 2020 and 2021?
So I shared the receipts because sometimes nowadays it's especially like okay, tough talk. I shared it with some members in the Discord because it's
Mm-hmm.
just for fun talk. It's not really content that's valuable on YouTube because looking back at the past is not something that's actually going to provide value. So the only one that I've done that sort of kind of was with Palantir. I have one video on Palantir, but basically going over why I sold. And in that one, I showed every single buy price that I had, every single sale price that I had, and all the profits that I made. That was one where I took advantage of the bubble, basically. And we had, my friends and I, we had some fun plays. So one of them, you're probably going to laugh at this, but back when Nikola was a SPAC,
Ooh.
right? We saw it. Yeah, no. We made a good amount. Well, I didn't put a tremendous amount of money, but I put around like four-ish K and then sold for like 7 point something K. So in terms of totality, it wasn't that much. And it was kind of like a speculative gamble. Like Jim Cramer had just brought on these guys, and it was the beginning of the SPACs. This is very early SPACs. So people aren't even talking about SPACs like they were in 2021. This is 2020. Right. And so this is like all this craze. They had no technology whatsoever, and people were just foaming at the mouth over this company. And so that one was just a degenerate gamble, and it was fun. And I'll do that here and there for fun. And then the next time around, when I was, discussing that with my friends and stuff, they're like, oh, there's potentially like another one just for fun. It was CCIV. I don't know if you remember that one.
Oh, of course. That's Lucid.
2 weeks.
That's
yes,
Lucid.
2 weeks after.
I was in that one too. That was
you were in that.
One. Yeah, I bought CCIV too. Not even gonna lie.
No, but 2 weeks after we all bought it, because they saw the Nikola thing, because they didn't want to do the Nikola thing, but then they saw what happened with that one, just as fun. And my friends are not degenerates either. This is also kind of like they put some fun money into it. But we did CCIV the 2 weeks afterwards I think it was on a Friday or a Thursday, I forget when. Kevin does a live stream and starts pumping it. And I'm just like, what is this insanity? And then things blew up beyond proportion that I could have even imagined with all the SPACs. That was like the very beginning of the SPAC craze. And it just got nuts. Like certain other SPACs were just going crazy. But yeah, CCIV was one. And then the last one that I held on to but participated and still made money on, the last shares, I think was sold in November, or no. The very last day I remember where I was in Spain. I was on my way to another city, and I sold the very last shares of Palantir. But we made a good money on that one too. But yeah, I have that one, and I showed people because the CCIV one, that's so degenerate. It's like, to talk about, but with under the context that it was just fun to play with alongside the degeneracy. And there was one thing that you're going to laugh about this one, but this was a legit investment. Okay. It wasn't meant to be what it turned out. It was what's the name of that company? I'm thinking only Nikola. It's Nokia. Sorry.
Oh my God.
But no, it gets worse.
Of those meme stocks too.
Yes. No, but I bought it alongside with my brother in the year before. So it was in 2020, end of 2020.
Okay.
And it was in November. We went to a cabin together. And we were hanging out. We were also discussing Nokia as an actual legit investment, but we wanted to limit our exposure. So you're gonna laugh, but we bought call options on Nokia. Yeah, strike price of 4, expiring in January 2023. We don't have them anymore, but all of a sudden Nokia got caught up in the GameStop stuff, and we didn't do it for that. This is again November. This is before all that. Right. And we didn't put much. Like we put a total value, me and him individually each had about like $800. It was 10 contracts. And so, but that turned into like several thousands of dollars at one point. At one point it looked like it turned into, 50,000, but that was like a fluke in the system, just so you know.
Okay. Gotcha.
For those of you who remember those days. But
no, I do. There was a lot of that happening too, especially for people like myself who was using Robinhood back then.
Yeah, no, they froze it, so we couldn't sell it when we saw the value at 50K, because keep in mind, we just did it kind of like for fun, limiting exposure, but we were actually thinking we might even use them and exercise them. So for those who don't know contracts, like each contract is 100 shares. So we were basically securing at that price point 1,000 shares. So, but we were also like willing to sell the contracts if we didn't want to participate in the underlying stock anymore, and we thought that market was giving us good value for our contracts. But we ended up both selling for a decent profit in percent terms, but in absolute terms, not much. So yeah,
gotcha.
it was good. So that's the answer to your question. Did I yes, there was some degeneracy, I'm not going to deny it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when you just see everything going up, I mean, how could you not, right? But like, how did you feel? Like, did you recognize that we were in a bubble during that time? Like, did you exactly know? Because I know for me personally,
Oh
I
yeah.
remember the entire. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
No, oh yeah, work we were always talking about. That's why I thought like in terms of to the degeneracy, I didn't get all of them, but like those are the three, and I participated in them because I thought people were becoming just overly excited. A lot of retail participation started entering the market in 2020. And so you usually see that. So the dot-com bubble, you can go back to, like, for example, it's famous, like the Yahoo forums. So even though we're younger, we weren't, really active during those times, obviously,
Hmm.
but we can read from the past and try to learn and extrapolate lessons from that and try to see if we can see something kind of not repeating necessarily, but rhyming. And I think in 2020, we saw like a rhyme, but with different factors playing out, because we had, stimulus that we hadn't seen before. But the internet had been even more, it's become even more connected. People are more, uh, information is more easily accessible for stuff like stocks. So the Yahoo comment forums, right? There's even more stuff than that. There's like stock twits, which is utter degeneracy. If you guys ever go on there, um, you have, I mean, I don't know, Seeking Alpha comment sections can get pretty degenerate too. What is another one? I
Did
mean,
you say
Reddit.
Reddit
Everyone
yet?
knows that. Yeah,
Yeah, Reddit.
Reddit. So
There's
all
also
of
something
this,
called Quora too, but yeah.
Quora.
Yeah, it's like called Quora. There's another one. It's kind of like a Reddit.
What? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what my point. Like, there's so much more available now. So this excitement and this kind of like self-fulfilling, I don't know, circle, of excitement. Everyone's getting each other hyped on certain stocks when no one even knows what some of these stocks were doing. Like Nikola, they didn't even show a product, and people were just fanatically foaming at the mouth, excited. And I think we saw that with Rivian too. Rivian a little bit, but it's not apples to apples with Nikola. I don't want everyone to think that, but
Hmm.
just like that,
But I get
the
it. They haven't
thinking
even
hasn't.
produced a car, and there was a
Yeah,
lot of hype over it. I get it. Yeah, I
exactly.
completely
So you
understand.
saw that. So you're like, yeah, of course. Some crazy stuff was going on, but there were also plenty of opportunities within that, because not everything was given its excitement. There's one particular stock that I bought a decent chunk of in terms of dollar amounts, percentage terms. It kept it controlled at like 3-ish%, just under 3-ish%, and it's done really well. Well, that's the allocation now, but it's done really well. And during that time, that stock was hated. You also had Cardinal Health was hated. The one I didn't mention its name is on purpose because it's a small cap, but
Hmm.
I'll say that right now. I'm not going to really talk about really small caps.
No, I get it.
But yeah, I'll tell you off camera though
Okay.
which ones.
But the
But
bottom line is, because this is what I'm trying to get at, like, because you got people like Warren Buffett during the bubble. He's such a value investor, and he basically knew we were in a bubble. He's like, I'm just not going to buy anything because I know how it's going to go. So that's my thing. Were there a few stocks that you were able to find, or did you overall just kind of sit on the sidelines? You're like, okay, we're clearly in a bubble. Everything's overvalued. Like, it's not really much for me to do here. Like that.
no,
That's
no,
kind of what
no.
I'm getting.
So in 2020, I was
Hmm.
deploying cash a lot.
Okay.
I was just starting like my more serious part of my professional career, and for those of you out there, if you have like a passion, one good place to kind of express it, it's just like, so you put yourself out there, and it kind of adds to your resume. Is you start expressing yourself via, in this case, I'm doing YouTube now, but back then I did articles on LinkedIn. And so I would write articles on LinkedIn, just discussing random things. And there's not a monetary reason for it. It's just to show a passion that you have. And one of the things I was expressing why in this, I think the article was posted March 23rd or 22nd of 2020. I was showing that I was selling out of an ETF that I held for this reason. And it wasn't the best one, by the way. So going back, we learn our mistakes and we learn ways that we could have optimized or performed better. But I had bought an ETF, GOVT, which for those who don't know is like government debt, basically. And the actual best way to play it was TLT. Well, because TLT focuses on longer duration. So longer duration debt instruments will do better when rates are coming down versus something that's a bit more mixed. So you see GOVT only went up 7%, while TLT, for example, throughout that same time period of January 2020 to March, went up 20% instead of 7. So back then, future me would tell my past me the new lesson. Well, if you think that that's going to be the case, like, for example, there's going to be a jump to more safety, a flight to safety, you want maybe perhaps more TLT, which is something actually as an expression of today. If you think, this is only if you think this, if you think that rates are going to come down at some point in the future, in general, you're going to benefit more in longer duration than short duration. So that's something that I wrote about in that article. And then I was buying particularly bank stocks. I was buying a ton of bank stocks. So I built out huge positions in Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Citigroup. Citigroup's the only one that's remained. And then Wells Fargo, I've re-added to it. But Citigroup's the only one I have never sold. And then I also got some shares of Realty Income, which is a REIT. Many people might know that. Dividend lovers definitely know that one. And throughout the year, towards the end during the election, I bought, and this is no longer in the portfolio, but for those of you who've been following the channel for a while, a lot of shares of ConocoPhillips, which was, that one was ConocoPhillips and Oxy, Occidental Petroleum. I always call it Oxy, but just to clarify, it's not what you think. It's Occidental Petroleum. That one is an example of me playing with the soap too much, because I sold the Occidental Petroleum thinking I'm de-risking, and that one performed, I think, almost double the performance of ConocoPhillips, or maybe just I think 50%. I forget exactly how much, but it performed significantly more. And I actually hampered my performance because I did that. But it is what it is. And technically I was correct in saying that ConocoPhillips was more conservative than Oxy. And so I was more comfortable holding ConocoPhillips and taking the profits from Oxy. But there are times that I will do that, and goes to show you, like, again, more lessons that I can learn because I should have kind of thought about it a little bit more, that Oxy was de-risking itself because oil prices were rising. This was allowing them to their cash flows were growing significantly, and that debt risk was not really that bad anymore. But yeah. So no, 2020, I was a buyer, but I'm pretty much always a buyer. Even when I'm kind of negative, I'll sell some stuff, but I'm still like I'm still buying something. I'm not really always like, oh, I'm not going to buy anything for a long time. But that's like my circumstance, because I tell everyone, like, you got to follow what your circumstance is. That's why I don't know financial advice. You got to do what is comfortable to you. You got to create a plan that fits you, because if you have no money coming in, well, that's so super different from someone who is currently making an income and money's coming in. They don't have a fixed amount of capital. Two completely different situations. One's going to probably worry a little bit more about timing things than the other one. And obviously age is a factor too. Someone who's older versus me is suitability, right? But yeah. See, Julius played with the soap too. Yeah. But that's things we have to learn. Don't play with the soap.
Right. So now here's another question. So obviously there's a new growing movement between, obviously, well, I guess not really a new growing movement, but obviously the best thing that most investors can do, and even Warren Buffett and other legendary investors have said this, the best thing any individual investor can do who's not as sophisticated as, like, somebody who studies this stuff every day, is buy the S&P 500 or put most of their money in index funds. However, when you look at retail, even with everything that has taken place with this bear market that we've entered into, people still don't want to buy index funds. Like, I can just see it. Even the people who may say, I'm an index fund investor, it's like everybody in retail still owns individual stocks. And so, and they want to, and they want to learn about it. So my question for you would be, how could a regular person get to a point, like, where do they begin to get to a point where they could develop the research skills to actually do individual stock picking, which we know is extremely difficult?
I feel like that's also, if I'm being honest, something like, I think it's mostly males.
Yeah.
Because, yeah. But I think there's always going to be a lure to picking an individual stock. I don't think that's ever going to go away. Because there's something romantic, I guess, about owning an individual company, right? There's a story behind it. People always get behind stories. That's why I even describe there's like two types of investors. There's like a spectrum, right? At the one end, you have the extreme story-driven investor, and the other end, you have the super analytical investor, and both are bad, right, in their own sense. But with an individual stock, there's a story to it. People kind of try to overcomplicate it, and you say, like, okay, but you own individual stocks, so then why do you say index funds? Well, I'm going at it. I'm going to try it myself, but that doesn't mean you should. And in fact, that's like, I have no monetary incentive whatsoever, whether you like individual stocks or not. YouTube's a passion. I like to make videos, and I could care less how many views they get or anything like that. And so, and there's no product to be sold to you. Like there really isn't. So like there's a YouTuber, I think he's about 200K subscribers, remain unnamed unless you want to name him. He talks very bad about index funds. And, you know, starts talking about there's a bubble in index funds because he has a platform where he sells research to people for individual stocks. And he focuses a lot on emerging markets, et cetera. So it's also like that, and kind of playing on that romanticization of like, oh, I own this individual company. There's a story behind it. And I think that's not going to go away. Now, how can someone kind of get good at it, I guess? Well, one, not everyone will be. And I think I always I learned this lesson young. Honesty with oneself is one of the most important things you can do as a whole. So we always like to, it's actually something people internally have to work on, because it's something else lying to other people, right? But then lying to yourself is even worse, because like, why are you your own enemy? So if you're not honest with yourself, then that can be harmful, because then you're going to do actions that maybe you shouldn't be doing. So the example is, be honest with yourself about what the actions you're going to take on. Like, do you think you're going to outperform the market? Do you think you're actually capable of it at this moment in time? You don't, because you have choices. You're not forced to. Back in one day, long time ago, you actually had to, if you want to participate in the stock market, you had to pick individual stocks if you were, you know, the average Joe, right? But now there's instruments that there's these options in front of you. Could you just do that? And then be honest with yourself about the time commitment. Well, an index fund, the benefit, and I went over this in like the free course video that I still have to add to because I only have one episode out,
Right.
But it's dedicated to index funds, because I think that's exactly where the beginner investor should start. Just understanding that this product is there and available to you. And what you got to think about the costs of not doing that in a more profound way, not just returns. Time commitment's another one. Because if you just do the index fund strategy, think about all the time that you free up that you could focus on doing something else, improving skills and increasing your income, right? Because that could yield a higher return than trying to eke out 2%, let's say. There's other YouTubers that say like, oh, you should aim for like, 2%. And there's also, you got to be honest about luck aspect. Like, I'll be honest, for a lot of the returns I achieved in like the last decade, there was some element of luck, no doubt about it. Because one of the best stocks I invested in the last decade that really boosted my net worth was Shopify. But you got to, I acknowledge that, repeating that same scenario in the next 10 years is very difficult, extremely difficult, because Shopify not only was performing well, and it performed well, great as a company, but the market also ascribed an insane premium at one point in time, right? Will that happen again to another stock? Absolutely. But can I find it? I don't know. So that's why also, like, people who've been kind of watch me and I've been talking about these things know that I've switched more capital preservation than I probably otherwise would have been, maybe like, let's say 5 years ago. Like, it was far more concentrated, et cetera. And you think Google's a big position, but but now it's more like spread out, et cetera. But the way you can kind of improve upon, because that was also part of your question, and you got to hold me accountable, Echoes, because I tend to ramble, so then you got to bring me back.
You're good. Yeah,
But
I got it. You're good.
the way you can improve is, honestly, there's no way to do it without putting in the work. This is something I was talking with Cole, because people think that there's just like a quick way to get to any destination, that there's just like this magic form. That's the course mentality. You buy this course and now you're going to be excellent at this. It's not how life works. You got to go at it. There's going to be some failures, and you got to pick yourself up from those failures, and you keep going at it. And then you try to be as honest with yourself along the journey. And then you look backwards and you say, okay, well, what did I do wrong there? Can I improve upon that in the future? Hopefully when the next similar scenario, because it doesn't repeat exactly, but it rhymes, you do better. And that's all that you can really hope for. So, and the danger of you, I'm an optimist. I think YouTube's going to clean itself out, like, over time. Just, I'm optimistic about people kind of seeing and being like, okay, well, that's silly. That's not silly. But you'll see a lot on YouTube of people trying to sell dreams, stories. You get it? Like, still, it's the same thing. Stories.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's all about selling a story, and the story of, okay, I put a calculator in front of you and I say, look at it, you're going to grow your wealth this much, and by in 40 years, you're going to have like $1 million if you just make this. And I have the answer to your, dreams. So it's something that, what is that, bro? Take down the comment. I don't even see this comment, but yeah, it's something that when, for example, you're looking at a micro cap, because I'll be honest, like everything's nuanced. So I do believe that if you pick a great company that's smaller in size, they can have greater returns, and there's perhaps more of opportunity in that market because not many people are researching into that. So like all the big players, they're doing tons of research all the time in the larger players. So it's very crowded. But in the smaller players, I can say that some of the ones, like the one I didn't want to mention before, but that one was really overlooked. And I'll say just the market cap. The market cap now is like 200 million, but it wasn't 200 million. At one point, it was at 100 or I think below 100 million. So that's, if anyone just understand, that's why I'm not talking about it. But that's a stock that no one was really looking at least, like, let's say people or larger institutions were definitely not paying attention to. But there were actually a group of people who across, let's say, the web who did, yes. And I just happened to be among them at that point in time. But the problem with that is that you have then people on YouTube who don't care really too much about being cautious about it. So I'll give an example, because this is not what I'm even saying. Avant Brands. Everyone's heard of that because of one big YouTuber. My gosh, if you tell me that was not moved by that particular YouTuber, oh my gosh, it's incredible. Yeah. So I'm just like, I have a channel that's small, and I am concerned about ever even thinking about even touching it or influencing a company with a market cap of like hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'm only a 3,000 subscriber channel. That guy has hundreds of thousands, and he couldn't give two shits about that. And yeah. I'm just shocked when I'm looking at that, but it is what it is, the world we live in. I don't even know what to say. Point being, it's still selling a story, talking about how this company could go to this point. I don't know if that's the person's strategy to, put hype behind that stock and profit from it. I don't know. I'm not going to make that claim, but
right.
People could infer that. I don't know. So what are we going to do about it? Yeah. It's just someone said the name, Yeah.
So. Okay. So can you kind of just break down your overall process? Like, let's say somebody says, "Hey, Fabio, what do you think about this stock?" And you really want to do some real research on it, which we all know it takes hours to actually research a company. It takes a while because there's so many different things that you have to look at. I know for me, when I'm looking at a company, it literally takes me a while. Sometimes it can even take days, depending on how complicated the business is and different things like that. So, like for you, what's your actual process of once you learn about a stock and you begin to do the research? Like, how does that go for you?
Well, one thing I'll say, everything I'm going to say from here on out for this question, keep in mind that this is a journey for everyone if you want to partake in it, and it will build. So you got to, if you want to go through it, you got to be consistent about it, and it will get better. You will get better at this if you keep going at it. So you'll notice that knowledge you accrue for one particular industry can sometimes, not all the time, and you got to be careful with that. And that's a caveat on that. Sometimes can relate to another industry or a company in the same industry. You've already researched that one. You got an idea for that company, and now you're looking at another. Like, let's say you analyze Coca-Cola, but you really did. You understood the business. It translates pretty much on par with Pepsi. Like, you're gonna have a good base. So this is why I'm saying it's like a journey. You keep at it. You build and you build and you build. So then your question was, what's the first steps that I would partake in? Okay, so using some free resources, because that's, I think, how most people want to know the answer to. So first, you got to be able to think critically, right? So you're going to look at what the company does. I think that's very important, like a very basic start, right? Because some people don't, believe it or not, some people don't. So you find out what does this company even do? And then you got to begin with, okay, let's look at the past. How's this company done? I'm not talking about the stock price. I'm talking about the financial statements. So you're going to look at how has management been running the ship, right? Because you don't want, that's a step that's easier said than done, because you don't want to get onto a ship that's in trouble. Maybe it has a hole in it and it's taking in some water. You want to be very careful. And sometimes that can be very intimidating and complicated. So the asterisk there is your skills in this department is going to be the most crucial and the longest that you're going to hone out, or one of the longest. So then after identifying if a company is in trouble or not in trouble, because again, easier said than done. That's just me saying words. But I'll give an example of some companies that we discussed. There was, you covered it, Voyager Digital. So one thing we went through, and it wasn't even actually, it was on the 10K. All right. So it was publicly available information. This is not, secret information. They had it there.
Let me just interrupt real quick because I do want people to learn. So for those who don't know, 10K is what, the annual report, right?
Yes.
10K is the annual report. 10Q
yes,
is the
report.
Right. 10Q is the quarterly, right? So 10K is where you start, which is the annual report. You just start reading the annual report. That's part of it. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead. I just want to make sure people understand that. Because
one thing,
I feel like a lot of retail investors don't even do that when they research. Like I like some of the companies they're in, they've never read the 10K for it.
No.
Yeah. No. Okay.
So I've done in the past, like I've actually tried to automate some things. Like I'm not an expert programmer. I don't want anyone to think that, but I coded an R, something that could read 10Ks and return to me smiley faces and frowny faces. And so it can give me like a gist if I wanted to automate some things, like look for keywords. It gives me like a general thumbs up or thumbs down on like a 10K or 10Q. But I did it mainly for 10Ks, actually not even 10Qs, but so it's designed for that. But anyways, the issue I think with that is, retail kind of thinks there's like not all retail, because I know there's retail in here, right? So I'm not talking about you guys, but retail tends to want to have a quick answer, right? They're like, okay, just tell me good or bad. They don't want to
buy or sell.
read into it. Exactly. Buy or sell. Give me the buy or sell alert. I despise that too. I despise that.
Definitely.
But so in Voyager's 10K, you could have gone through the risks and stuff, and it wasn't really on there, which was funny. But Voyager, I think you covered this too with they did a reverse merger. And that's how they were able to skirt around things. People didn't know that, right? So that's one thing. And then that's a little nuance. It's not even in filings, the current filings. Like if you were looking at the current filings, you would be like, okay, I don't know the context of how this company went IPO. But that's not necessarily the deal breaker, right? Okay, they did a reverse merger. There's a lot of companies that have done that. It doesn't prove that they're doing something bad. You could have also looked at, I don't know, this is where the critical thinking comes in. You could have looked at 9% interest rates. I don't know. I feel like that's a red flag, but for some people it wasn't. And then you could also look at one part, which was some counterparty risk, which was pretty much a big deal, which is actually what caused them to go under. And that's something I discussed in the video. And in the video, I said to people, and I got comments in it. Some people deleted it. Some people kept it up in the Voyager Digital video. And I actually posted on a community post because someone messaged me saying that because of what I told them about Voyager Digital, they were able to get all of their money out. They weren't an investor in the stock. They had their money in there. And so they had a significant amount of money in there. And so I posted it because I thought, like, first of all, if anyone saw this community post, maybe they also have their money and they see what this guy said and, they get their money out or something along those lines. But after the fact, when we looked at the counterparty risk, which we could see and kind of measure on the 10K, it just showed you all the different counterparties. They didn't tell you who they were, but they tell you their geography. And from there, you can extrapolate some context about how those different geographies are in terms of business. Some of them are kind of questionable. Like we had, I think it was like, I don't remember the exact percentage, but I think it was like 50 or 45% Cayman Islands entities. And I don't know which ones they were. And it was another big portion in Canada. That might have been, what's the other company? I forget. I think Voyager Digital was Canadian as well. But basically, there was risk outside of the principal business that, I also talk about when I talk about like Citigroup, because, well, banking stocks, I don't want to bore everyone, but banking stocks I love them. And I have a weird passion for those kinds of companies. And one of the things you want to pay attention to is counterparty risk. And something like Citigroup versus the other three, when I'm talking about three, I mean the big four banks, has a lot of counterparty risk, and people don't appreciate that. So they think the book value should be, what the price should, or the stock should be, which I don't think so. But yeah.
Nice. Well, let me get your thoughts on this. Everybody in the chat is talking about SoFi, and I see Gabe is in here too. What's going on, Gabe? What are your thoughts on SoFi since everybody seems to be talking about it in the chat?
Um, uh, SoFi.
Yeah,
SoFi.
I mean,
I
I
mean,
guess to be more specific, I mean, do you think it's a buy right now? Do you think it's a good company? Like, what do you think about that more specifically?
I have no comment on the quality of its services because I haven't used any of their services. But I'll say that when I looked at them, because I have looked at them in the past, the only thing I found interesting was Galileo because the banking side of it isn't really, it's not my cup of tea for, because I like banks, but I don't like what they're doing with, for example, what kind of audience they're targeting. Because part of the thesis that I saw in general among retail was that this company focuses on getting a lot of, let's say, wealthier clientele, which I don't really see that inside of the company as a whole. Like I don't see that in the products that they offer. They offer like early payday checks. Um, and I know that the company, how it started was it was lending out, it was finding this arbitrage play and lending out loans to students that were going to get decently paying jobs, doctors, lawyers, etc. That's like the story of the company. But they do have a decent exposure to student loans right now, right? That was a whole spiel, like why people were worried about it too. And so as a bank, I don't find anything in particularly interesting because I don't think a lot of people appreciate how the plumbing of the financial system even works and the roles that different banks play within our financial system. SoFi isn't at any point in time even a threat to like the primary dealers. That's not even a thing. I think that's funny that people think that, but it's not. And that's why the only thing that I find interesting is Galileo and what Galileo could do, but I think it's being a little bit accidentally overhyped, could do for smaller banks such as credit unions or even small tiny local banks because they don't have the budget that the big banks have to invest in their internal technology that Bank of America is, JP Morgan is. I think JP Morgan's budget's like 20 billion, something crazy. I know it's in the tens of billions. It might be 10 billion. But credit union doesn't have that budget. So that's where like companies like Fiserv come in. And I'm trying to remember the other ones, but a couple other companies that what's the other one? There's another one that's like South African, or at least I don't know if they're South African based or if the CEO is definitely South African. I'm trying to remember the software. But anyways, it's one that got really hyped and
Okay.
got destroyed, but it actually is a good software from all the people that I've spoken to that use it. It's pretty good, but mainly it focuses on smaller bank entities. So yeah.
Nice. So, if somebody were to buy it, not even as a speculative investment, if somebody were to legit buy it and say, I think this company is going to be the next 10x, I'm putting 50% of my net worth in there, how would you feel about that? Because there are still some people on YouTube. As a matter of fact, there are channels that are completely dedicated to just SoFi. Like they're treating SoFi like it's the next Tesla. So like, how do you feel in terms of like do you think it's a buy? Do you think there's a case for people to put a decent amount of money in it?
Like, okay, but I can't tell anyone what to do with their own money. I
Right.
don't really mind. Like, I don't want to do that. But
So
like,
basically, you don't
different to
like the
you. But
stock. You don't
would
like
I
it. Is
be
what I'm
doing
trying to
it?
say. Right there, you go. Like you
All
don't
right.
like
Would
the
I
stock.
do it? No, I would never. I would not do that because I think that there's better. Maybe it could end up in the speculative side of the portfolio because you could say like when I kind of, again, going back to being honest with yourself, I like to think of a opportunity. Is it a bundle of potential? Does it have a lot of potential? The answer is yes. Okay, it could make a way into my portfolio, but if it's just raw potential, right? How much are you willing to put into something that's potential, but it has to execute, right? SoFi, in my opinion, it has to show me that it can execute in those various capacities, which would make it interesting to me. Otherwise, it's not it's not for me. And even then, I have to be really excited about its potential per se. So, and I try to also limit the percent allocation I have to these plays too, as a form of just a sense of responsibility. But that's not like a hard rule. It's not a rule you should follow. It's a rule I follow for myself.
Right. Okay. And then, what are your thoughts on? We have another popular retail stock that has a ton of bag holders. What are your thoughts on Palantir?
Oh well, Palantir, I made money off of those guys that were hyping up.
Right.
The
Right.
lowest price I was able to sell out at was $19-20. And the buy prices, again, I refer back to my video. I was actually, if I was making YouTube, I would have been one of the original people buying Palantir. simply put, on the speculation that it was going to get overhyped. Oh, and it did. And that one was a good one. But I think most people, when I talk to them, they don't even know what it does. I've spoken to some people who do actually do work there at the firm, and via email. And some of them actually watch the channel. So I was like, shout out to you guys. You guys know who you are. And so it's, my thoughts on it is like retail got really excited about it. I think the name's cool. So that's one factor. I think the CEO is, interesting in particular, and that draws in attention. I think that the story is great, right? The story is great. They just got, and like everything always adds to the story. If you notice a lot of the reasons to be bullish, it's all, in the story, and that's great. You need a good story. That's true. I'm not denying that. But the problem is when it's just mainly driven by story, it can be a problem, or I find it to be a problem. And everyone I've spoken to, right, as far as the usage of the product, it's good. And when I say, I don't want to make it sound like it's a lot of people. I've spoken to 2 people who are users of the product, not involved in creating the product, users of the product, 2 people. And so both individuals, and that's not a good enough sample size, by the way, but both people said very positive things about it. Do they think it's like, absolutely going to destroy everything everywhere, predict No, it's not like that. That's what people, have you seen Westworld, the show?
No, I haven't.
Well, there's season 3, not to spoil it too much, but season 3, there's an AI that predicts like everything. People think it's that. I think there's some people that think it's that. And it's definitely not that. It's a very good data analytics platform. It's a very good way to sort data, and a lot of the products, or a lot of the solutions, are very customized to the client, which makes it very expensive. Like, you actually look at how they actually deploy, it's quite expensive to deploy it because it's heavily customized to each client. Now, there is supposedly some improvement that can be based there, because if you build a customized solution for one oil company, in theory, it won't cost as much to replicate that or do something similar to another oil company. Because oil company to oil company, there should be some similarities in their operations. But yeah, And there's the governmental aspect, which, you have 2 different parts to look at it. But I think the story right now, it definitely has to be focused on, for anyone involved in it, you have to be focusing on the private sector involvement. So not so much the public sector. Public sector is like the cash cow. It can grow, but, I think everyone knows that the story is now on that. So you got to be paying attention to more of that part of the story.
Right. See, this is the stuff that I'll talk about when I say about what retail says. Like, people will say, "Oh, they used to take down Bin Laden," but it's like there needs to be more than that for you to believe in a stock than just they took down Bin Laden. Like, that's the way that I look at it. I just personally don't understand the code behind the stock. And obviously, there's a popular YouTuber named Amit who basically has said he's put like 70% of all his money in that stock. And how do you feel? Can you kind of just talk about the dangers of YOLOing a lot of your money in an unprofitable company? Like, do you think that that's just a bad investment strategy? Like, period?
I mean, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
but there's nothing wrong with well, no, I'm going to backtrack that comment. It's not that I wouldn't do it. It would depend. But the thing is, I'd be careful. Even if I was doing it, I'd be very careful trying to allure others into copying me or doing it. I'd be extremely careful, because if I'm going to make a lot of money from it, I'm going to make a lot of money from it. I don't need to like tell you about it necessarily. But just in kind of being conscious about it, because what if it goes wrong? Now, I don't know. I'm gonna feel bad, but that's not what you were asking necessarily, because you're asking mainly, what was your question again? To kind of backtrack.
Yeah. So my question is mainly just
Would
like,
I do it?
yeah, kind of like that. But like, how do you feel about people like Amit who's putting 70% of their money in that?
Oh,
Like, how do you feel about that? And just given the fact, regardless of how anybody feels about it, at the end of the day, it's basically almost a penny stock. It's an unprofitable company, and
yeah.
statistically, what'd you say?
What are they at now? Let me
Yeah, it's
look up.
like $7. So it's like $7. So that's just my main question: is how do you feel about that? And I do like your answer about like, if you're gonna do that, it's fine, it's your money, but just be very careful of, I guess, coming off in a way that would get people to copy you. Like, I definitely get that, and that's kind of where I'm getting at, because we've seen many YouTubers who kind of follow the same path that Amit has followed, where, you know, you have people who were like that with Tesla back in the day, even like a Jeremy who did things like that. And it worked out. But I feel like what people don't talk about is the thousands of situations where it didn't work out. Like, I remember when Sock Mo went all in on Neo, and Jack Spencer went all in on Workhorse. And you know what I mean? Like, stories like that is what just makes me think. So that's kind of what I was trying to get your opinion on. Just why it's a bad idea overall to have majority of your money in one stock, basically.
Well, let me just start by saying it's not necessarily a bad idea for those guys, because let's kind of break that down a bit.
Right. Yeah.
If it is, and they understand that there's a, because it's depending on the person you're looking at. Are they doing content for content's sake, or are they doing it because they, you know, I don't know, for whatever other reason? But if they go all in on Palantir, let's say, and Palantir is known to have a strong following around it, that's a lot of views that you can farm, right? So for the purpose of farming views, it might be a good business decision to do that, or at least say that, or whatever, you know, whatever they do, but to have your reputation or all in behind Palantir, because you draw in that community. It's a quick funnel to get a big community, because then people will go to you for that stock. And so as a financial decision for those people, it might be good, right? So I'm saying, like, for Amit, if he wants to create a large community and that's his goal, and if he's stated that, I don't know if he has or hasn't, but if he stated and he's used like the words like, you know, to create a community and stuff, Palantir is a really good stock to do that strategy, because a lot of people are there or coming onto YouTube or whatever social media just for Palantir content. So for him, it's a great financial decision. For his portfolio per se, may not be good, may be good. I don't know. Because there's also, let's say it does turn out well in the end. You may find it that some people don't participate in it all the way through. So hypothetically, let's go through a scenario where in 20 years time, Palantir is $1 trillion company. Let's say that. All right, whatever. Let's pretend that that's the case. How many people buying today are actually going to stick through it to then? Well, let's go look at the history with other companies. How many did that with Apple? How many did that with Amazon? How many did that? Yeah, not very,
Amazon
very, very
that crazy drop back in the day.
Yeah, very few people have done that. And then I notice this every time, and it's awesome that, like, I'm happy I did YouTube, because I also got to see it almost in real time, changes in sentiment, even among different stocks. Like, I think it was, I mean, we're seeing it right now with like Meta. Like, Meta is like, I'm not kidding. I mean, you know this, like a year or two, when it was 300, people were, and then when it was at 200, people were still, like, but now people are kind of actually throwing it away.
No, you're right. You're right.
And then Netflix was the same thing. I mean, I did a video on Netflix where I grabbed a larger content creator, and we watched in this video, because I grabbed the different scenes from his different videos. We watched his face changed with Netflix stock. It was a course of 6 or 7 videos. And it went from like 600. He was super confident in buying it at 600, around there, somewhere crazy. And then as it kept coming down, you started to see his demeanor changed for the stock. He became less excited for it. And that's not really going to go away. So kudos to him, because he's actually, you know, capped it or whatever, but maybe that was a wrong decision, because now he's in the red a lot. I don't know how long it will take for Netflix to go back to where his cost basis is, because if I'm being honest, when I looked at Netflix the first time when he owned it and it was requested, it was a heavily requested stock. It was extremely overvalued. The market was insane. Streaming was just like, you know, I don't know, like people were just like, oh, pandemic streaming, throw it up, you know, pump up that multiple to extreme levels. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm going at. So financially speaking, might be a great decision for them. Might even turn out well, but probability is that they stick through it the whole way, even if it does. I don't know. So, but people do whatever they want to do, I guess. I can't. Everyone here is adults. I can't force you to. Well, I'm not even going to try to force you. It's not like I'm going to even attempt. I don't care. But yeah.
Nice. I do just want to say this one thing. I know you're not for the drama, but I do just want to say this. I know you're just stocks. But it says here, there's nothing fishy about it, man. He just prefers high risk, high reward companies. Now, I heard what you said about like kind of like how some of them might be incentivized. I mean, again, we're not saying that that's a myth, but I guess how do you feel about some of these YouTubers who, in my opinion, haven't learned their lesson? Like, do you think that's dangerous? Because, for example, you've got people like I feel like Kevin actually has learned his lesson because he doesn't really talk. Actually, never mind. He just goes all in Tesla. Never mind. Never mind. Most of these YouTubers haven't learned their lesson.
It's not.
And what'd you say?
Well, no, continue the question because.
Yeah, I guess my question is, how do you feel about the fact that a lot of these YouTubers, because I feel like there's an argument that a lot of us have learned more lessons than even these bigger YouTubers, which is insane to me. But even given the bear market, you have people like Jeremy who still believe in these, basically what Gabe is saying right here, these high risk, high reward companies, even though the bear market is kind of hopefully woken a lot of people up and proven to us that that strategy doesn't really work. It's really just gambling. That's not really investing to try and find these small cap companies that you think are going to be the next 10x without even doing a full research to even understand it. So, like, how do you just kind of feel overall about these YouTubers and their overall influence and just everything going on, even with like what Gabe just said about Amit's investing style, which I think is insane?
So I'll say, remember my optimistic take that I think, YouTube will cleanse itself in some way?
Yeah. Which
Then
I
here's
don't
my
agree with, by the way.
pessimistic
I'm
take.
sorry to say.
Well, this is my pessimistic take because I like to have both sides in my mind.
Okay.
So my pessimistic take is that it won't because there's always going to be a market for that because at the end of the day, people want to be sold a story. And what these YouTubers that you just mentioned are essentially perhaps focusing on is as a business decision, right? Because this is how they make money. This is their piggy bank. This is the cash cow. They need to do what is a smart business decision. And that smart business decision is playing upon that desire that people have to find out how to get rich tomorrow, how to get rich in 5-ish years, selling stories, the story drive. And that's if that's the demand by people and you're trying to make money and let's be more innocent about it. Let's be more kind about it. Let's say, you look at someone like Jeremy, he has a incentive to provide for his kids as a father, right? He's got that money drive, right? He wants to make sure his kids have everything that he didn't have maybe himself growing up. Maybe even, I don't know about Kevin's situation in the past or whatever, but say he has the same drive. So they're going to do what's the business decision. Money drives a lot of behavior. And that behavior, let's say if it's, talking about those kinds of stocks and talking about that's what the people want and people vote on it. And how do you guys vote on it? Everyone out there, you vote on it by clicking and watching the video. When you watch the content and you give attention to that video, you are voting that more of that content is what should be created. And that creator is therefore rewarded for creating said content, generates income, and it gets more exposure, then can upsell, I don't know, a course or something like that. And that's how they actually make money because we can get into that. But in all of that, right, it starts to kind of make sense. Like they might be not making money in their portfolio, but does that matter? It doesn't matter that Stockmo maybe doesn't make any money in his portfolio. No, it probably doesn't matter at all because that's not the business he's in. He's not in the business of making good investment decisions. He's not investing to grow his portfolio a lot. He's growing his portfolio in general, his net worth, by creating content that the people want. How do I know the people want it? I look at the numbers. That's what the people want. Simple.
Insane.
So,
okay, let's get to this. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No. So that's the pessimistic look.
Okay, and yeah, unfortunately, that's what I think, and I also think YouTube. I think at this point, I'm sure YouTube knows what's going on, but because they're in that gray area between whether it's legal or not to even do that, I think YouTube's just like, hey, they're getting views. That's more advertisers. That's more revenue for us. Whatever. That's what I think is going on. I think the only way it's going to stop is either the community is going to have to come together and put a stop to that somehow, which probably won't happen because these guys have such massive followings, or some regulatory body like the SEC or something is going to have to come in, which I'm just not so sure it's going to happen, unfortunately, which is why, for those who don't know, that's why I don't go after grifters as much on my channel, because it just got to a point where I'm just like, is anything really going to come out of it at this point? Like, don't get me wrong, I'll still do it. But seriously, it just blows my mind that after all this time and everything that has happened, these people still have insane followings. Like it just blows my mind. It really does. And you even have people like me, Kevin, and Jeremy who were telling people to buy trash stocks like literally during the bear market rally we saw in August. And you saw Kevin's tweet, which I make fun of, saying we're going back to the moon, baby. And fast forward, the market's at 3,400. Like, oh my God. Like, I don't know, man. But anyway, let's just I could talk about that forever.
No, I
I
mean,
want to
that's
get
something
your
we can get into.
yeah, I want to get your opinion on the macro environment right now. How do you feel kind of about what's going on with the Fed? You've got the Bank of England stuff going on. You've got everything going on with the Japanese yen. Do you think things are as bad as people think, or do you think there's some optimism coming? Like, do you think things are probably going to end up getting better maybe next year?
Well, I think if you're pessimistic now, you're kind of like late to the party, is my opinion.
Okay.
So I see some of the subscribers that we share in common. I want to see if they want to say the word out loud. What is the phrase that we talk about all the time? I'll just say the first word, liquidity, and I'll wait for someone to say the rest. But um, this is something that's kind of been going on throughout the rest of the year, and that's like the game I'll give you guys. So whoever says it first, I'll know that you're from my channel. But in oh, there we go, boom, we got two. Yes, liquidity crunch. So that's been kind of the theme, not the theme, but we've been talking about it here and there off and on the channel since about January. There was some content on it like November, December, but really hard on it in about January. There was even some memes I made a little bit about it. But if you're kind of getting really pessimistic right now, like you're starting and you weren't before, you're kind of towards, you're more than likely, because I don't know. It's something that I want to kind of clarify. It's like easier to tell like there's a storm coming than to know when once you're in the storm, this is like exactly when it ends. So I don't play by that game. So you'll notice that when I buy a stock, I'll be buying it, and I don't try to plan out, okay, that's the bottom price. I'm gonna go all in at that price. So never will I do that as far as my investment strategy. It doesn't appeal to me, and it's more relaxing to do it the way I do it. It's a lot less stress, and I like it that way. So, but as far as like paying ahead, I mean, I would be surprised because I got out of energy because I thought we were going to see a lot of demand destruction in energy. And I think if you look at some of the chemical manufacturers, which is something I've been highlighting, is they've been facing a decent amount of pain more recently. And that's kind of alluding to the fact that perhaps we're going to see some pain at the energy market, because a lot of the input costs for these chemical manufacturers is energy. If we're seeing some demand destruction on their end, things will ripple through. And the thing is, things were rippling through to a lot of the material sector through, if you looked at discretionary spend in the consumer. If you started looking at, for example, Target, Walmart throughout the beginning of the year till now, they've been telling you, they've like literally been vocal about it, that they've been seeing the discretionary spend come down, more concentration in necessities rather than discretionary spend. Discretionary spend is a huge portion of what we look at for consumers, and how that affects everything else is it's upstream of everything else. So we'll see that later down the road. And then we're actually now passing the 6-month mark for my commentary on Wells Fargo's earnings, where I said after Wells Fargo's earnings, and it was one of the earlier earnings. So now about 6-ish months ago or so. And the commentary there was Wells Fargo was telling us that they're seeing a lot of destruction in lending growth in the mortgage sector, a slowdown. And they're not the biggest player, absolute biggest player, but they're the biggest of the big four banks. So then real estate oftentimes takes a little bit to kind of show itself, right? And so at least in my area, but every geography is going to be different. At least in my area, prices have been coming down. I don't know if around you, prices have been coming down, but with rates so high, we're seeing a lot of, let's say, demand destruction for loans. And that trickles into the housing market via less demand for actually buying houses, because there's not enough capital. You're not as incentivized as before. So something has to give. Prices are probably going to come down because we're going to have less buyers. Not every market's going to feel that. Just like in the great financial crisis, not every market felt it the same way. Some markets felt it more than others, et cetera. So that's what's some of the nuances of real estate. Not to get too much into a tangent, but that's why iBuying is bad. But coming back, I am more of an optimist than I am a pessimist. I do have plays that benefit in a pessimistic environment. That is true. But I'm more of an optimist, and I'm just buying stocks that I feel like I want to accumulate over time, assets I like, prices I like. Keep it simple is what I'm doing it.
Yeah, so it sounds like you have more of that Warren Buffett approach. It sounds like whatever's going in the macro, whatever, you find a stock that you like, you're buying it. That's kind of how you are.
Yeah.
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 Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Are
And
you
some
from
play. Mhm.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, and some plays are, you know, they're not gonna do good for a while, but that's completely fine. That's why I like to build out the position. So I don't like to just buy all at once. I think that the one that I went kind of nuts with is all at once was like GPN. But you see with
Mhm.
most of the stocks, I like to build them out and I update people on the portfolio updates as they keep going up.
Nice. Oh crap! Did I just put him on timeout?
Who'd you put on
My
timeout?
bad. Staccato. I think it's staccato. My bad, staccato. I did not mean to put you on timeout. I don't even know how I just did that. That was an accident, though, bro. My bad. Okay. Oh, here we go with this clown. I'm blocking him. Um, my next question is: what are your thoughts on crypto? How do you feel about cryptocurrency? Do you think it's a good investment?
Uh,
Obviously, very few people in here like or care about crypto, but it's worth asking.
I have I have no investments in crypto, and never have
Mhm.
I had investments in crypto. Not even for fun. So like I'll admit when I had fun to generate uh, investments, but and I still have fun to generate investments. Right now,
Right.
the couple of the fun ones are absolutely demolished. But you know they're fun. They're supposed to be fun stocks. So I have a burger joint that's a fun stock, and it's like I think it's down like I don't know 50, 60%, something crazy. I don't know. I forget how much it's down, but it's down a lot. So crypto has never made it into my portfolio just simply because I'm a sideline cheerleader. That's like I like to call myself. We want to classify like a name behind like what am I with crypto? I'm a sideline cheerleader. Like I'm cheering for it because I think some of the solutions that it brings forth are interesting. The technology is interesting, no doubt. And I think people kind of overhype though that part because okay, the technology is interesting. What does that mean? Does that mean Bitcoin
Hmm.
will technically not necessarily. Like I think that, for example, companies in the future, that's going to be the best way to track inventory, unique identifiers, stuff like that. And it's going to have its use cases in, for example, some internal auditing solutions, external auditing solutions as well. But as a form of currency, sideline cheerleader. That's to the extent that I am. Um, will it happen? Will it not happen? I don't know. And if it does in the future, I'll generate my income in that cryptocurrency. But yeah, that's how I look at it.
So, how do you feel about the fact? Because I looked at an interesting chart maybe like two live streams ago. Bitcoin is significantly outperformed the stock market every single year except for two. I
Yeah.
think 2013 and like 2018 were the only 2 years. But besides that, you just saw incredible returns 50% annual, 1,000%, 1,500%. It was insane. So, just like, I guess, how do you feel about that? Because I know some people in crypto that I've spoken to, they're like, well, because there's people that I know that are all in crypto. They don't own any stocks. Like they only own crypto, and they really believe that crypto's that great and going to do that well that there's no point in them owning stocks. So just how do you feel about that? The fact
Uh,
that Bitcoin has literally outperformed the market every year except for two.
for me, it doesn't bother me whatsoever. It's because I'm happy for everyone who made a lot of money, and that
Mm-hmm.
could be life changing for them. And congratulations if you've made a ton of money and now you are able to relax more in life. And then now the difficulty is keeping it.
Right.
Easier said than done on keeping your wealth, but you know, I hope that a lot of those people they learn to how to keep it, and they also don't fall prey to those who you know seek to take advantage of them now that they have wealth and maybe understand they don't know how to handle it. But yeah, as far as like as form of like oh because it went up a lot, do I necessarily care? No, I don't really care, but I am genuinely happy for them. I have one friend who has invested in crypto and he's done really well, and it's been a life changing for him. And I tell him the same thing. And right now, he's actually, well, he's been outside of crypto and he's just in index funds. All that
Nice.
money went into index funds. So even if crypto were to rise any further, whatever happens. He's set pretty much. He's fine. He's going to be fine in life now, and he can focus on his career now. And that's basically between me and him as his friend. That's basically what I told him to do. Just do that and relax. Focus on just doing good at work. Get
Yeah.
promoted. Make more money.
Nice.
Get married
Nice.
eventually. Have kids. I don't know.
So how did you can you kind of give us your origin story of how you got into investing? Like when's the first time you ever learned about investing? How did you get into it? How did you learn about it? What was kind of your journey into becoming the investor that you are now?
Well, it has been a journey. And so it all started, the bug, you could say, started back in about 2013. I had a custodian account, and so I was able to invest under the age of 18. And the there was some play money that I had with my friends, because I was lucky that at least my group of friends at the time, we were all, I guess, interested, and we took courses in our high school. We did the IB diploma program, which I don't know if people know what that is, but it's basically think of AP, but it's recognized globally, and you can basically go to university anywhere in the world, stuff like that. But we did a lot of classes on the IB level regarding economics, et cetera. And that basically also allowed us to test out, by the way, in university, similar to AP. That's why I said AP is the most akin to it. But uh, even within among the friend group, we would start to, get into it. And this is very basic, like telling you, starting from not knowing what a dividend is. That's like, I guess, the beginning of everyone. Like, because when you first start investing, you're probably like, well, what is a dividend? Everyone had that moment where they're like, what is this? What is a PE? So that's the years that kind of that echoed. And there was a paper account that we did, and it was the time of remember Ebola?
Yes.
Yeah, you
Yep.
remember Ebola.
Yep.
So there was a hazmat suit company. This is paper money, and it was like uh, this sparked the fire, because it was a degenerate gamble of putting everything into this one hazmat suit company, and it's paper money, so no profit was ever made.
Mhm.
And it blew up all of a sudden because they got the contract for the World Health Organization or something. And and then I was like, wow, this is insane. This is incredible. What if I did this with real money? That's how, the thought process began.
Yep.
And so I was already like, okay, how does this all work? Okay, I got to get money. So I figured out ways to get money, started working and various things, still staying in school, and then graduated, went to university. I had an option to go to a much more expensive university where I didn't have that much of a scholarship. And it's actually where you live, by the way, you Chicago.
Really? Oh wow.
Yeah. Or I
Nice.
could go to a state school into their honors program, and I could get a scholarship that covered everything and not pay a dime. So I chose that one.
Yeah.
And then I also then started working, you could say, like my network per se. I started a business in tutoring, and then basically the investing bug created like a scrappiness within me, where I figured new ways to generate income, and then more ways to save, spend less money, and it just continued from there. At the moment I turned 18, because I graduated high school at the age of like 17, and then so with the moment I turned 18, opened up my own Roth IRA and put everything, like I maxed that out every year. And the tutoring business was perhaps like my greatest proportion of success in my early years. And then from there, I did really good in school. I got decent internships here and there, and made money on the internships during the summer. And then during the school year, I would go to school and focus on my tutoring business. Tutoring made a decent chunk, by the way. Any college kids out there, do that. And I would tutor, calculus, Calc 1 and Calc 2. Calc 3, I didn't. I did Calc 3 in college, even though I didn't need to, because my original, I have basically 2 classes left for a third major in biomedical sciences. But I figured, like, I don't want to be like a laboratory researcher, and I wanted to pursue what I actually wanted to do. So just get into finance and accounting. And then from there, basically throughout that time period, I gained more and more experience, and then eventually started focusing more of my work experience around that. Got a job in a local business around here, and basically got an opportunity to learn there. I learned the most. I got an opportunity to learn a lot there, and then segued into what I am doing now, which is also going to segue into something else in about a year or 2 years, which is exciting, because that's like I'm going to go on a separate team, and but we won't talk about that specifically. But yeah, the point is, it's been a journey, and it always builds on itself. And there's not really, like, if you're looking for a particular book, because I know that I'm asked that a lot, there isn't really a particular book. It's just more like doing it, trying to find out information from those who've done it before you as much as you can, and just actually trying to learn from them and taking what they say very seriously because they've been through things that you haven't been through. So the dot-com bubble, I didn't go through that. So how do I learn from that? I have to absorb that from someone else. And I have to really take them seriously when they try to tell me, okay, well, this is what's my experience during that time. And I go, okay, how can I kind of see that now? And then we saw that. That's why I was saying to you in 2020, we kind of saw it 2020, 2021, echoes of it. It wasn't a replica, but it was echoes of a similar, you could say, mentality that existed around that time. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but basically, yes, it's been a journey. There's no secret sauce. It's literally just you do it and you get better at it. You try to learn from it. You are honest with yourself. And yeah, honestly, if you're like everything, even in academia, like you're going to learn blah, blah, blah. You're going to learn more in a workplace environment than just by hitting the books, so to speak.
Yeah, I think one of the major advantages you had was you started early. You started very early because basically when you started getting into it, I remember me at 18. I didn't know anything about this, didn't care to know. I didn't learn about this stuff until I got to college. So yeah, definitely starting as early as you can is definitely the best thing you could do. And I love what you said. That's crazy to me that at 18 years old you're putting money into a Roth IRA. That's amazing.
No, yeah.
I didn't start doing that till like what, 25 maybe. So yeah.
No, I got for my other sibling, my younger sibling. I have two younger siblings, but one of the younger siblings, I have a custodial account for them that I already put money into. So because as the older brother, responsible for them in that sense.
Yeah, I do the same thing for my I mean, I don't have any kids yet, but I have a niece and then I now have a nephew, but my niece has a custodial account that I put money into. And then at some point I'm going to make one for my nephew who was born like 2 weeks ago. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think awesome. It's good. So I have it designated that they're going to inherit the capital at like 25, I think. 20 something. I forget. I have to actually.
I was going to say you could do that. Yeah, for me, I don't know if it's state laws, but I know for Illinois it's 21. Like I can't say you get this when you're.
It could be 21. No, it could be 21. I haven't looked.
Yeah.
No, because it's been the accounts existed for several years now, and I've never gone to that part ever again. It could be 21, but it's 20 something is when they get control over the account. It might be that it's maxed out at 21. But that's something that like, okay, they even if they don't get excited about it, I'm still kind of just doing that so that they're gonna, get it. They can decide what they want to do with it. And yeah, I think that's also a good way for. I don't have kids yet, but when I have kids, I'm 100 trillion% going to be doing that all the way. I'm going to be creating custodial accounts, making sure that they're also aware of it, and then trying to not shove it in their face, but like because if you shove something too much in like any kid's face, it's like they're not going to want to do it. They're going to be like, that's stupid. That's for that's lame. So it's got to be like eased in, so to speak.
Nice. So one of my favorite stocks personally is Disney. And I want to get matter of fact, I want to get your thoughts on a couple of stocks. First, we're going to do Disney. What are your thoughts on Disney? Obviously, I know you like Netflix. I like Netflix too, but I do like Disney better. How do you feel about Disney stock? Is that something you think you'd buy here at this price?
Disney's under $100 now. I think it's a 90 something. And I haven't done an analysis on it in a while, but last time I checked, did not like it too much. But they have a great number of brands. Everyone's going to say that. And I know pretty vanilla answer, but there are, I think, also companies. Yeah, they do have Star Wars, sadly.
Hey, you can say what you want, man. they keep popping out new shows. They're doing the smart thing, in my opinion. They got Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Andor. They're killing it, in my opinion.
I've only seen Obi-Wan. I gave it a shot. I tried to give it a shot. No.
Yeah, it wasn't very good. I'll admit that.
Yeah, no, there was so much bad writing. Like there were some parts where there was a fence. I just remember one of the fences where it's like they took a shot, like a wide shot, and then you could have just walked around the fence. But he was so like stressed about getting through the fence, but he just walk around it. it's a fence, like a force field or sort. But they didn't even explain that. Good writing would have been explaining why he couldn't go around it if you're going to show that shot or that angle. But it is what it is. And then, yeah, you have She-Hulk. But the thing is, guys, I think Disney, this is what I was going to say. Disney is like Nintendo, kind of. It doesn't matter if they mess up or provide an inferior product. People will just buy it, and they don't have to really put much effort into it. It's just like, here you go. Here's Star Wars. Now give me my money. And then people are like, oh, this is bad. How dare you do this to me again? Here's my money. And then they do it again. They're like, oh, I thought you learned your lesson last time, but here's my money. And they do it again. And they're like, oh, one day I'm going to resist you, but here's my money, you know?
Yeah, but here's my key, Fabio. Here's my key. Even though a lot of Disney shows lately have been bad and Star Wars and everything, we still watch it. We still watch it. Like, let's be honest. If they come out with a Darth Vader series, you're telling me you're not going to watch that?
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
It's terrible. It's terrible to admit that. But yeah, it is what it is. I think like they have the library, they have the content, but it's also streaming is a difficult business. I think people are starting to realize that more. I'd say that Disney now at these prices is probably better than obviously it was before. But I've been not too happy with Disney as a company, or excited about Disney as a company for a bit, but I'd have to relook at it. And judging by where it's trading at now, maybe my mind will change. I forget really what prices I thought it was interesting at, but I wouldn't be surprised if I necessarily find it more interesting than before. I need to know, like, people kind of underestimate, okay, well, there's a lot of capital investment that's necessary in the theme parks, right? And even in the shows themselves, there's a lot of capital investment necessary, but doesn't reflect itself in the same way on the financial statements as traditional CapEx does. So you got to do like a little bit of creativity when doing an analysis on that. And there is a supposed value, but it's hard to determine, which makes it really hard. And that's why one of my first Netflix videos was not positive on Netflix. It was not.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I have a lot of videos now at this point. I have I think almost 400 videos, 300 something for sure. And so going back like to my oldest Netflix video, I'm 99.99% sure that one was not positive. One of them was because, like, for most people, I think that they're going to find out streaming businesses are fairly difficult to kind of get a grasp around, just because of how we have to determine the value of all the investment they're doing on content. It's hard. And yes, I just quickly saw someone saying ESPN. Yeah, they own ESPN. They have all the content you could really imagine. But
and they have Hulu. They really have everything.
Yeah. It's something else. But I think like Disney Plus is going to be a stable. But I just don't think. I don't know. I don't know if they can do what they're doing to a lot of their brands, all the damage that's being done, that I think is being done forever. I think at some point something gives, if there's other content out there that's not doing that. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with Disney. I think Disney is also very bureaucratic, and there's also the one-off event of that fraud allegation that still hasn't really panned out anything, but that's a one-off event that you might be wanting to pay attention to and making sure. Or keep an eye on it at least. So
nice.
That's where I'm at.
And then what are your thoughts on Amazon? How do you feel about Amazon as a stock? Because one thing I noticed that was very interesting to me, there are two key stocks that I noticed you don't own that I really like, and that is, you own Google. That's one of the major ones, but Microsoft and Amazon, I noticed you don't own.
I own Amazon. Oh,
you do own Amazon.
Yeah, it's in there. Yeah.
In the portfolio, I didn't see it. Okay. No,
yeah,
I know Google is, but I didn't see Amazon or Microsoft in there.
Amazon's a larger portion of my personal portfolio. When I say my, because there's two of us in this team together. So the one that I show on YouTube is only mine. Hers is not shown because she's not a part of this in that way. She gets that privacy. But yeah, it's Amazon's one that I'll be a little bit more cautious on what I say about them, but I like the company. And then Microsoft, I can say a little bit more. Love the company too. And Microsoft, I'm obviously more familiar with their products in even a business setting, like their cloud products as well, like Azure. I'm also more familiar with them for Microsoft Power BI and their various other additions. Now, specifically, you're saying, do I like Microsoft here? Like Microsoft
and Amazon, yeah.
I prefer to have my bets, for example, in the cloud. I prefer to have them in Google Cloud and AWS. Now, Amazon's a different beast altogether because of its strategy. I think that most people don't. I'll leave this for another time, but most people, I don't think, still get Amazon. It's weird how they do their analysis. Which, by the way, if you ask me, because you can be there now Sundays tomorrow. You can ask me and we'll talk about it.
Oh, did you put me in?
Yeah, you're in.
Oh, so if I go to the Discord, I can find it?
Yes. So Sunday, 12:15.
Okay. Appreciate that, man. Okay, cool.
Just remember to ask me and we'll do a whole spiel about Amazon because there's a lot of people that actually like talk about Amazon.
Okay. Okay, cool. So yeah, oh, well, I guess we'll talk about it. Okay, cool. That's fine. So Amazon, can you explain? You know what I've always been interested in? You have a very good understanding of exactly how banks work. So just for everybody in the chat, can you, and I'm sure some people already know this, but I still have a hard time actually grasping this part. Can you actually explain? Somebody put the Discord link for him, however y'all want to do that.
Well, you can't, it is free, but you can't just get in. Just be aware of that.
Okay.
It's a bit of a process to get in. And you'll get interviewed. And yeah, but you know, I make content on YouTube, so you don't have to be in the Discord. I don't like to sell the Discord too much. Like, it is free. There is a non-free version of it, so just be full transparency. But to even get into the free version, you have to pass an interview.
Nice. Can you kind of explain some of the misconceptions about the whole money printing thing and where the Fed made a mistake? Because a lot of people say that the Federal Reserve printed money in 2020 and that caused all this crap. And you said something very interesting that I didn't even that I'm still trying to learn and understand. You said that the banks actually print the money, if I'm correct about that. Can you actually kind of explain that whole process?
Yeah, so banks print the money when they lend out money. Federal Reserve doesn't print money, it prints reserves. It's what people get wrong, reserves. So I guess I'll give you the quickest way. I'm getting better and better at explaining it in a quicker and quicker way, but let's see how I can do it this time. So you go to the bank, you borrow money, right? That's actually where the money is created. When you pay back money, it's destroyed because it's the form of debt. So you take out, let's say the Federal Reserve, when they do quantitative easing, what they're basically doing is they're creating a reserve, and then they're going to the bank, the primary dealers in this case, and or other bank-like entities, and they're exchanging the treasury for a reserve. All that's happened is just an exchange. Nothing's been created in this process. You could say a reserve's been created, but the reserve has only been created because of the existence of the treasury. Now, this separates fiscal spending. Fiscal spending can be inflationary, especially if directed in one particular area, because the government borrows the money, and then it creates a treasury. It creates debt, right? Who's giving them the money? Technically, still, the source is the primary dealers who go into the market and they give the money to the government, and that creation is where the treasury is created. The Federal Reserve comes in, takes the treasury, but the treasury has to exist. If the treasury doesn't exist in the first place, the reserve doesn't exist to replace the treasury. So the reserve is created and replaces the swap, and nothing really has been created additional to the treasury. The treasury's already been created. Now, the banks, the primary dealers, they're creating money. And they can create money in, let's say, the public sector, the private sector. So in the public sector, we were just talking about that a little bit, and that can be a bit of a problem because we can get something called the crowding out effect, where we basically have an issue where we see a drop in lending growth in the private sector, and that's the lifeblood of any economy. Hate it or love it, banks are the lifeblood of any economy. And countries with large and decentralized banks tend to have stronger economies than the other way around. Like, for example, the United States and Germany are two with the highest concentration of, or greater quantity of banks, lowest centralized concentration of banks. So it's a benefit because JP Morgan doesn't necessarily care about you and I, but our local credit union might, and our local tiny bank might. And if you have a business, you might have a better relationship. We've discussed this because some of the people in the Discord, they are either managers of a business, operators, owners of a business, etc. And so they've kind of shared their thoughts over time as kind of giving anecdotals to everyone else as to how the relationship might extend, where, let's say, the management team of said bank might even be in contact with you. That's how much of a customized relationship you might get. With JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, all those, they're not going to do that. You're not going to have the CEO of Bank of America call you and say, give you customer service. It's not going to happen. So that's why it's kind of important to do that, because they're able to micromanage things that big centralized banks cannot. It's very difficult. It's not a feasibility. Now, if you're going off of, like, again, money creation is the banks. They create the money, and after they create the money, then we can have all the other transactions. Now, we have something called portfolio rebalancing, which can cause asset prices to rise, and that's because money is still trapped in these asset classes. Like when a non-bank entity, when they have treasuries and want to engage in QE, or the Federal Reserve wants to engage in QE, they have to go through a bank first. So the bank is the intermediary and exchanges the treasuries for cash, and then they take the treasury and give it to the Fed in exchange for reserves. In theory, the reserves can in fact be exchanged for physical dollars, but the thing is that we don't live in a society where cash is, available in everyone's pocket. If I were to give you cash, your more probable behavior, this is where we get a little bit more complicated, you're more probable to deposit it into your bank. I don't know if you have a stash of cash under your bed. Don't tell me. No one should know that. But let's say, don't smile like that. That's oh, it froze. It froze on your smile. So it's
did it? No, I do not. But it's just funny because that's so old school.
Yeah, no, but like, more than likely, what people are more than likely to do is just grab the cash and just go right back into the banking system. Like, so it's not really likely, to say the least. So when you take on top of like where the behavior of the average person is today, it complicates things. So it's not as simple as, money per go burr is what I'm trying to say. And this is all supply shocks. All this is supply shocks that's going on. And then what's going on in like the European bond market is we have a dollar shortage, and it's causing havoc around the world. Yes. And that's something that we've been talking about. Like, we call it the liquidity crunch. That's what we've been talking about it on YouTube for a long time now. And we're kind of seeing its effects kind of run rampant, but it wasn't money printing. It's kind of setting up the reversal of it. And banks, you would think, for example, they benefit from rising rates. No, that's not the full story. They can do, but without getting too much into it, because that would be a whole other topic. It's more complicated than that.
Okay, cool. Neon Galaxy says, "What are supply shocks?"
I know who Neon Galaxies is.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. So no, Neon Galaxies. What are supply shocks? Do these have to do with actual flow of inventory, or is it exclusively related to banks and liquidity? No, it's more so with flow of inventory. Banking and liquidity is like a whole separate issue that people have been doing extensive research on for like decades now, because there's a lot. It's not a widespread opinion, but I guess it's a decently researched opinion that something's been wrong, at least in the West, since about the year 2000. So. Yeah, Neon Galaxy's laughing because I call him out because I know who he is.
So regarding your explanation about how banks work and stuff, like, how exactly did you learn that? Was there a book you read where you learned this? Was there something online you learned? Like, how did you learn this? Was it just you in college they taught you this?
No, not in university. No, that's definitely not. In university, like that's actually more work related, where I learned bank plumbing. And just because if you want to know, if you want to invest in banks, you should learn how the plumbing of a bank works. And they're notoriously complex. I mean, just look at any of their look at a 10K of a bank. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. They have a lot of documentation that they're basically showing you all the different assets that they own, and breakdown of even like some, let's say sensitivity analysis of what are some scenarios in which this asset does poorly or worse. They disclose all that, and they're working really hard. And even doing, like, even setting up those financials is a long process. They have a whole department that's their whole job, just for the whole year. It's insane. So yeah, because Julius Caesar says it perfectly. College is more theoretical, and it should be like the base of. It can be a really good base, by the way, because I'm not the type of person to say, "Oh, college is a scam." I think that college can be a waste to a lot of people, yes, but it's not a scam. It could be a very good base for a lot of people to then build their knowledge on top of that, because what college is there to do is to show you the theoretical, and then you as a professional go out into the world and build upon the theoretical using your real life experiences. And don't let's say waste your time there. I can go on a rant about people wasting their time in university. It's terrible. But yeah.
Nice. Individual Investor has a good question. He says, what's Fabio's thoughts of Japan and other countries dumping treasuries and USD reserves to prop up their own currencies? Any thoughts on what's happening in the repo market?
So I actually have a interesting perspective on that, but it's they're dumping treasuries because treasuries are exchangeable for dollars. If there's a dollar shortage, you would see that behavior. So right now the world is strapped for cash for US dollars. So if you have all these dollar denominated instruments, particularly bonds, US treasuries, those are the reason why countries collect them. Is one, they're very good collateral. They're known as pristine collateral. And so in different bank-like institutions around the world, and even non-bank-like institutions might accumulate treasuries for that reason as a tool. But when you go beyond that, like let's say countries like Japan, if there is a dollar shortage going on, you should see this widespread selling treasuries to accumulate dollars, and then doing whatever you want with those dollars as whatever plan you might have, but you need those dollars. So it's more of a reaction to a shortage of dollars, and that's kind of what I've been personally observing across the world. But we've been again talking about that for a while. I see Dan's talking about dollar milkshake theory. Now that's a bit of a more of the extreme scenario. Like even the guy who created dollar milkshake theory says he hopes that never happens. But yeah, it's like one aspect of it, but it ties also in line with what a lot of other people have been observing over the past 20 years, and a lot of their research is dedicated to. But yeah, dollar milkshake theory is like a good baseline of kind of seeing the extreme conclusion of that. Yeah, you see individual investor, like, yeah, Brent Johnson is the creator of dollar milkshake theory. You're basically naming him. So yeah, that's a good place to start if you want to hear what dollar milkshake theory is all about. Go look up Brent Johnson. Not saying he's correct or 100% correct. And even keep in mind, I just want to be clear about this. This sort of like macro analysis doesn't actually indicate that Brent will have the answer to how to invest in it. I think he's even addressed that, but it's different for, acknowledging a problem and then trying to. He will do his best. He will acknowledge the problem. He'll try to invest accordingly. That doesn't even mean he's going to even be successful. So don't even copy Brent is what I'm saying. But it's like a good, baseline. So don't ever idolize any investor in particular, because also you got to consider, what tools they have available to them that are not available to you. So yeah.
Gotcha. Neon Galaxy says, Fabio, what are your thoughts on insurance companies? Do you favor companies that specialize in reinsurance?
See, because this guy knows where he's directing this question. He's trying to get me to talk about Markel, but because I do like that company. But insurance companies are great because especially in this environment, because it's not a coincidence. Like one of the best performers in my portfolio this year has been an insurance company. It's up, I think, almost like 60-something% in this year alone. But that's not alone in that sense. There's so many different insurance companies out there. You look them up. And I think most and not all, but not every kind of insurance company has done really well this year. At least outperformed the market. And even going up only 9% is outperforming the market a lot. So some of them have gone up, just barely. Some have gone up a lot. And so in a rising rate environment, they're able to basically churn that float into higher yielding instruments. And also the maturing debt is able to be rolled over yet again into higher yielding instruments. So yeah, I like insurance companies, but just be cautious about that, because in a lower yield environment, it's a little bit harder of a business, but the best ones are always going to be doing good. It is a good business in general. It's why Buffett owns Geico. It's a great business. But yeah, and he can take that float and he can invest it into stocks too, or private companies. So
Is there a particular sector or several sectors that you're bullish on going forward to invest in?
Well, the thing is, I'm investing in a sector right now that I'm not bullish in the short term, but I'm bullish longer term, and I think I'm going to get good prices. The chemical manufacturer sector, I think I'm seeing a lot of good prices in there, as a sector, but like fully well, and you can kind of see that through the evolution of like my allocation. Like it's pretty small, and I started, and in the video when I first started the position, I was like, we're probably going to see more pain ahead for this sector, but I don't play that game. I'm going to build it up. I'm going to accumulate. I'm going to, nibble here. I might get more aggressive because that's how I usually like to be. Like, for example, with Netflix, I think I started like liking Netflix when it hit like about 200, 210, somewhere around there. But then I never bought real heavy until it got to the hundreds, 60s around there, 170s. So I'm also liking where some banks, not all banks, are positioned, and some tech companies, how they're positioned. I think the next 10 years is going to be really interesting, and where something like where a lot of these workplace solutions, where they're going, that's also going to be interesting. So yeah, I'm trying to say Meta right there, but
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm sure you were talking about Meta, but
yeah.
yeah, we already talked about that. We talked about that last night about why you like that and stuff. And then the banks, I'm assuming you like Citigroup and Wells Fargo. I'm assuming, right? And you do like Bank of America, even though it's not in your
Mhm.
portfolio, because I don't think
No.
you own
Oh,
that one.
Bank of America is my favorite personal bank because I think they have the best program for individuals who can accumulate up to 100,000, and after 100,000, go find another bank. But I like that, and I love their credit card scheme on top of that, because it's a no annual fee, 5.25% cash back. I mean, come on, who beats that? I used to be an Amex shill when I was younger, and I learned, and I'm like, nah, no annual fee. I don't really derive that much of a benefit. But yeah, as far as like a bank that's well positioned, yeah, Wells Fargo is pretty good. But the thing is, they have that asset cap. Until that's gone, eh, eh.
Somebody said Fabio doesn't like SoFi as a bank. How do you feel about I guess how do you feel about all this recession talk? Do you think that we are absolutely going to get a recession in 2023, and like how
We've
bad do you think it will be? And do you think it's the Fed that is literally going to cause and force us into a recession?
If I say right now that I don't think we're gonna be in a recession, I'll contradict myself for all the videos. But so no, we're in a recession right now. We're
Right, a
already in one.
technical one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
how bad is it gonna be? I have no idea. So I will not invest according to like, we can play a game and say like how bad is it gonna be. I think it could get like bad, but not that bad. What is that bad? That, because someone's gonna be like, well, what does he mean by that bad? That bad being, or let's call it very bad. Very bad being financial crisis bad. I don't think
Yeah.
it's gonna get that bad. Which, by the way, for the world is not even that bad. There are countries who have been perpetually, for example, at 20% unemployment rate for like 20 years. There, there are some European countries that have had a terrible 20 years. You go there and things are cheap for you as an American. I implore everyone to go there, but yeah, the US are in a recession. The UK is as well. Sorry, you redefined it. Oh, he's joking about redefining it. Yeah. Well, we redefined it like the United States. Yeah. We kind of did. But it just doesn't look good if we say that. So
Right. So people have been comparing the time that we're in to 2008. And you got people like Michael Burry who actually did make a tweet like a few weeks ago or something, and he actually did compare the time we're in to 2008, and he actually said, he tweeted this. He said that it actually could be worse, and I just want to know, what are your opinions on that? Like, do you think we could actually get a full blown depression? Which I'm not saying we had that in 2008, but you know.
we could. No, like we could, like, because I've told everyone on YouTube, because I'm not going to sit there and start saying like this is exactly what's going to happen, how it's going to play out, because I don't know. I don't know. That's not my forte. And so, like, again, that's why I'll kind of bring it back and say, because I'm trying to be careful how I say things with that. All right. But it's like with Michael Burry, it's interesting to like look at his opinion and see what he's saying. And like, yes, it could get bad, guys. It could get very bad. I just have no idea how bad it could get. No idea. But it's so different telling that things could get bad versus saying how bad could things get, and then investing accordingly. Other people might try to do it and have at it, have fun. I don't think I'm going to focus too much on that. What I'll do is, like, because saying I don't change my strategy is a lie too. Like, for example, January 2022, I got out of REITs, all my REITs, and only just now have I been telling people I'm now starting to rebuy REITs, and I'm able to get all the REITs that I got rid of, which is not many. I'm making it sound like I had like 7 REITs. I had not even like 3 REITs, at much lower prices than when we exited. So, particularly, I'll just say the name Realty Income because it's a big company, Realty Income, ticker symbol O. And understanding also that it is a different scenario than when we were before. Capital costs or cost of capital has risen dramatically for a lot of these companies. And this is only going to be a strengthening of the best companies and a weakening of the worst companies. And I've talked cautiously about some REITs too. But yeah, to say that I don't change strategy is a lie. I do, but I don't make it the focal point, like where I'm selling everything. You get what I'm saying? Like, there's not knowing that there's a recession coming, or thinking, because the knowing is different. All right. Somehow, let's not pretend. If I somehow knew for a fact the stock market was going to be lower next year, I'd be an idiot not to sell everything. Do I know that? No. So why would I do that? I would be I can change my strategy, change how I allocate, reduce allocation to something else, but I'm not going to be like, all right, I'm out. Or better yet, I'm shorting everything. Some people might do it and they'll be successful. Good for you, but not my cup of tea.
Gotcha. Okay, that's really it for me. Unless anybody has any last minute questions, that's really it. Like I said, point of this was just to kind of interview you, pick your brain, and just kind of see how you feel about different things. One thing I really am intrigued on is how well versed you are on like a lot of stocks. Like, I could just throw a stock at you and you can kind of talk about it and just give a really good opinion on it and how you feel. So
yeah, it's not that I have the answer at all, but it's just over time. Like, I've looked at least all these companies multiple times in the past. So there are some that I have never seen before. The people on the community, they find stocks like, did you know that there's actually a truck stop company?
no,
No, there
I
is.
never knew that.
No, there's a truck stock company.
What's the
There was
ticker symbol for that?
TA. TA, literally. It's a truck stop
Truck stop
company.
That's crazy.
And there's the adult club company, RCI.
Oh yeah, which has performed well apparently.
Yeah, RCI Holdings. Yeah.
Yeah, which apparently has performed well.
Yeah, it's been really good. Yeah, so there's TA. What's my opinion on oh my gosh, Neon Galaxies. You are just a degenerate right now.
Kingdom of Finance asks, what's your opinion on DraftKings? We're not going to talk about any trash stock. You know what I do want to know? What's your opinion on Neo?
No, for many reasons.
All right.
Chinese VIE. No, not no to your question.
Yeah.
Like, no as the answer to your question.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, no for
like,
many reasons.
No to Neo.
Yeah, Chinese VIE. So I wouldn't touch it on that basis right off the bat. But kind of just like, okay, yeah, it could do well. I mean, I don't even know why I engaged with it even further than that, or thinking about it, because it's already a no off the bat off that. But let's pretend like I'm gonna pretend I don't care about the VIE thing. Well, on top of that, there's questionable disclosures. That's a huge problem that people kind of don't want to address. Like, debating whether or not the numbers of a company are as accurate as they otherwise could be is a problem in and of itself. Let's say that's not a problem. Okay, well, if those two things are not a problem and I don't care about those two things, why would I not like it? I'd say, I don't know. I'd have to investigate further, because I didn't investigate past that. I didn't get past those 2 red flags for me.
Gotcha. All right, well, that's really it. That's all I really got. Yeah.
Good hangout sesh. Good.
What'd you say?
It was a good hangout sesh. Good talk.
Yeah, definitely. No, I definitely appreciate you coming on and just, like I said, picking your brain. We'll definitely have to do this again. I know you come on my live streams anyway, but.
Oh yeah. I'll have you on when I'm working doing something, and then you're like, Cole come on, I'll be like, all right, I'll come on too.
Yeah, right. You already know your name's gonna come up too. So yeah, all right. Well, I gotta go. Gotta go hang out with the girlfriend folks. So
Oh yeah, that's where
yeah.
you look into the. No, I know the feeling, man.
You
So
know how
good.
it goes. All right, man. Well, appreciate you being on here, man. Thank you.
All right, man. You have a good one.
All right. All right. See you guys later. Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.